started. Welcome to the penultimate Speakeasy of 2014-15. This is an amazing event. You should probably move up closer. Yes. Okay. Sign-up sheet is coming around. Ooh. Hey, we are so happy to see you. It's bright, right? It's not even dark after daylight savings. That's one perk. We got 4 amazing readers tonight. No nonfiction, but it's going to be good anyway. I don't know how it's going to be. Morgan's going to come up here and tell you about the first reader. Here we go.
Wow! That's so exciting.
Yes.
So our first reader is Shannon Reed, who graduated in less than 6 weeks from the Creative Writing MFA program with an MFA in fiction. Oh no! There's so many people leaving, it's so sad. She hopes to spend the next few weeks wandering from one nationality room to another, forcing random Pitt students to listen to her memories from and about each, all of which will be entirely made up. Because she writes fiction. Because the truth is overrated, Kumi. We're gonna have a, what's that called? Rumble! We're gonna have a rumble after this.
Truth always wins.
Okay, Shannon's work has recently been published in McSweeney's Internet Tendency, the Mud Season Review, Quelli, Vela, Narratively, and Terrain Journal. So let's hear from Shannon. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so excited that I provoked a rumble. I'm going to forget that. Okay. Can everybody hear me? Excellent. I'm going to read an excerpt from one of my short stories titled My Daddy. This is the end of the story. So to understand what's happening, you need to know that the protagonist, Nellie, is looking back on the time period right after her mother died, when she was in her early 20s. Her very needy father, who owns a store in her hometown of Manorville, and who was born with one leg shorter than the other, has tried all kinds of tricks to get her to leave her job and move back home to take care of him. Nellie keeps resisting. Just before this excerpt begins, he's gone to the hospital for what might be a heart attack. The other thing you need to know is that earlier in the story, Nellie's daddy finally told her the ending of his obscene story about the Rogers donkey, which her mama had kept him from telling her all these years. When I got to the hospital and found Daddy's room, he was laying on the bed. He looked for all the world like a visitor who'd just gotten really tired. There was no IV or pulse monitor. He didn't even have a gown on. And I noticed that my Aunt Dottie was nowhere to be found. I checked my watch. It was just after 4 p.m., time for her stories to be on. That explained that. Is Aunt Dottie down in the TV lounge? I asked Daddy. He rolled his head to look at me and shrugged. I don't know, Nellie. You know I can only take her for so long. Why didn't you call me? I asked him. He shrugged again. How are you feeling? I said, and sat down in the plastic chair next to the bed. I had a feeling it would be a while until I could cajole him to get up and out of the room. He shrugged again. They said it wasn't a heart attack. Uh-huh, I said. Just gas, probably. Needed a fart. Well, that's nice, thank you. I probably didn't really need to come in at all, he said. That sounded like he thought about his actions, which confused me. I waited. You can see the store from here, he said, and pointed out the window down Main Street, which runs parallel to the street the hospital is on, called, fittingly, Hospital Drive. We are simple people here in Manorville. Your mama and I met there, he continued, his voice taking on the meditative tone that signaled that stories were going to be unspooled. I leaned back in the chair and tried to push out of my mind all of the things that I could be doing. My ex-boyfriend Heck used to complain that I was too impatient, and I probably was. But then again, Heck himself got a little glassy-eyed after he had heard some of Daddy's stories for the 19th time. I remember the first thing your mama and I ever talked about, Daddy said. Uh-huh, I said. He said, I was looking in town for something, can't remember what now, and I was walking along with my limp, you know. Uh-huh. And most of the people just ignored me when I walked by, except for little kids who might ask somebody what was wrong with me. But at the store, when I walked in, your mother was working there, And she came around the counter and she said to me, "What do you need, Nelson?" Just like that. "What do you need, Nelson?" I didn't even know she knew my name. She was a grade lower than me in school, you know. So I said, "A soda pop?" And she went off to get it for me, just left the cash register and everything to do it. Her father was back behind the manager's office window, and I remember that when I looked over at him, he just turned his newspaper to another page. I remember it was real quiet in the store, just the hum of the refrigerator cases and the whirring of a fan. And I remember that I stood there for so long, waiting, that I finally started to worry, wondering why she didn't come back. I was staring at Daddy at that point, because I'd never heard this part of the story before. It had always been hewn down to a simpler tale about buying a soda and asking Mama to the big dance at the high school. And finally, Mama came back with 2 soda pops, and I said to her, "You were gone a long time." And she said, "Well, I was trying to decide if I was brave enough." "Brave enough for what?" I said. "To ask you to the dance," she said. "What did you decide?" I said. "I'm not brave enough," she said. I saw the tears were beginning to run down Daddy's face now as he went on. "Oh," I said to her, just like that. "Oh." And we stood there with our open Cokes until finally she said, "But maybe you're brave enough to ask me?" Daddy kept on looking out the window with his tears wetting his collar. I felt them start to trickle in the backs of my eyes too, and I blinked a couple of times. "And then I was," Daddy said to the window. "I was brave enough." Well, I waited in the hallway for Dr. Russell to finish one more examination of Daddy, having bit my tongue to keep from saying there's really no need at all. I thought again about the Rogers donkey, or more specifically, that the only thing I knew about the Rogers was their donkey. Did the nursing school ever visit the farm? What happened to Harry? Miss Susan, single lady who enjoyed the donkey's arousal so much, did she run off to Morocco and become a high-class prostitute? Even though I knew the entire anecdote now, I didn't know the whole story. And then I remembered that Heck had heard it before I had. Daddy had told it to him after dinner one night, when the gentleman had retired to the living room, and Mama made me stay in the kitchen with her and help with the dishes. I didn't mind doing the dishes so much, but it galled me, this old-fashioned convention of the important manly men needing to rest themselves after a hard day of labor, when my mother had not only put in a full day at the library, but had prepared and served a delicious meal afterwards while Daddy sat around the store. I had flounced around the kitchen, grumbling, until I ended up slouched by the doorway, eavesdropping on the men. "Mama," I'd said, "Daddy is telling the donkey story." Mama didn't break her motion, hands in soapy water, yanking up plates I was supposed to be drying. "Mama, aren't you going to stop him?" Mama just said, "I think the glasses can be dried now, Nellie." "Mama!" She didn't turn around. "Then go on in and listen to it, Nellie, if you're such the grown woman now." Of course I didn't. Later, as Heck and I strolled down Main Street to the ice cream stand by the ball fields, I told him about it, apologizing for the story and wanting him to be angry on my behalf. "It was a funny story," he said. "Well, I wouldn't know," I said. "Do you want me to tell you?" "No." "Look, maybe your dad is as lazy as you say, but he tells a good story." "Does that qualify him for sainthood?" I snapped. "No, I'm just saying there are worse qualities to have in a spouse." We walked on. I fumed, Heck pondered. After a pause, he said, "Your parents really love each other." "I guess so," I said. "I'm not sure why." He didn't look over at me as he replied, "Because they want to." I'd forgotten that until that day in the hospital with Daddy. I haven't forgotten it since. Dr. Russell came out to shake my hand and assure me that nothing much was wrong and shorts I already had a firm grip on. Then Daddy came out of the room without his jacket, and I sent him back for it. He reemerged, limping, looking tired, but somehow less agitated. "Your mama always said she'd never lose me," he said with a slight smile. "She'd just follow the trail of dropped possession I created, and there I'd be." In his voice, I heard what he'd lost. The one person who would find his lack of competency to be endearing. "That's one good thing about you not being married, Nellie," You have time to help me out, he said. Let's not send you back to the store today, Daddy, I said. No, he said. Scott can handle it. He's a good boy. He started to shuffle down the hallway, but I grabbed his arm. Daddy, I can't move back home with you, I said. I'm a grown woman. I have a life of my own. I'm sorry, but I can't. Daddy sighed and said, where's my cane? Did I bring it? He leaned back into the room. Daddy, I said, did you hear what I said? He said, head still in the room. He popped it back out. I heard you. I guess I didn't bring it. There was a small pause as he looked around for the cane, and I said, how about I give you my arm, Daddy? Well, thank you, Nellie. You're a rock-solid young woman, you know. Gee, thanks a lot. Nothing, Daddy. Let's just get you home. He told me 4 more news stories that day. I only wanted to punch him once. And we ate the rest of Aunt Dottie's lasagna heated up in the oven the way Mama would have done it for supper. Then Daddy went on up to bed, and I was going to go home, but instead I found myself sitting on their porch rocking in Mama's chair. A couple of neighbors walked by, out strolling in the gloaming. Oh, you gave me a scare there, Nellie, one called. I thought you were your mama. I'm not, I called back. Oh, no, sorry. The word just kind of hung there in the night, like a benediction maybe, or a promise, or just an acknowledgement that things wouldn't be like they ever were again. Daddy went on back to the store the day after his heart attack scare, and managed to string his 7-hour stay in the hospital into a half-dozen new stories to tell the folks who came in over the next few months. This ended up including a woman in her late 50s named Maureen, who was new to Manorville after inheriting her mother's old farmhouse just outside of town. Maureen reeked of vigor and decision. Daddy married her about a year after Mama died. And though I felt a little bitter, I had to admit that it was a big relief to have someone else take over the care and feeding. Maureen never did ask me why I wasn't married myself, but often gave me compliments about my competency and work ethic, seeing in me a kindred spirit. She's a striver, just like her mama, Daddy would agree. I think that both Maureen and I felt the same way about marriage, which is that one of the people involved really needs to need the other person, and the other person really needs to be needed. That was certainly the way it worked for Daddy, and quite probably why it hasn't worked out for me. These days, when I drive home from Maureen and Daddy's on a Sunday evening, just after I come up over the hill on my way out of Manorville, I catch a glimpse in the rearview mirror and see how the town looks like a toy village. The little white houses, a few churches, Daddy's store, and even the hospital up on the hill. I'm always surprised that it's so pretty, making me forget whatever I was thinking about just then. I always want to tell someone in the passenger seat to turn around and look back at it, to see it for both of us. I'm not sure who that someone is supposed to be. It might be Heck, I guess, or Mama, or even Daddy. But of course, there's no one next to me. So all I can do is steal little glimpses while I keep my foot on the gas and the car in the lane, straight ahead, until I merge onto the highway and head on home.
Our next reader is Malcolm Friend. Malcolm Friend is a poet from the Rainier Beach neighborhood of Seattle, Washington, which despite being further north than Pittsburgh, was much warmer this winter. A self-proclaimed goofball, Malcolm is known to act a fool in front of a camera. Well, that's going to be great. Malcolm is also an alum of Vandy Spoken Word, Vanderbilt's premier performance poetry group that goes hard lyrically, and a current member of Hot Slam, Pittsburgh's premier slam poetry club. Probably all the premier clubs, man. And we'll be traveling with the group to Richmond, Virginia next week to represent the University of Pittsburgh at the College Union Poetry Slam Invitational. He also likes to eat a lot and has been known to get a Popeyes dinner or two with Cam Barnett. And then he wants me to say this thing that Morgan made up one day at a party. But poets unite. Oh, poets unite. Please welcome Malcolm.
All right, so I'm gonna stand in front of the lectern. So I'm a gangster. Gangsters don't stand behind lecterns. And hopefully someone out there got the Hannibal Buress joke reference. If not, it was still funny because you guys laughed. Alright, I'm actually going to start by reading someone else's work, because I always do that, because other people rock. So this is a poem by Aziza Barnes. At a Mississippi crossroads, Robert Johnson's daughter gets her blues. Mama taught me there are rules to a man. 1, don't ever knock the bottle at him. And 2, if you meet one who smiles easy, beware of the teeth. Remember, a mouth is a glorified hand, and he'll want to root through yours like you ain't got fingerprints. Like you ain't woman enough to leave a stain behind. You won't see him swig down water. He ain't made for it. You told me all a man got in him is poison. Crawling. You smell his kind a delta away. Try and keep him that far too. His final hour? It's underneath his tongue. Like a switchblade in a dress shoe. Don't dance with a man. All he got for you is music. My daddy, Robert Johnson, he had music. And when he left, he was more than just the stain a woman leaves. My mama took down her house nail by nail after he left, after his suits got all itchy, standing still in her closet like a headline in a sweaty fist. He left with our house. All we got left to live under is his name. Now I'm here, trying to make my own deal, because I want to be more than just an unwanted curl in a hairbrush. I want to knock a bottle into me. Dare anyone to push me. Dare anyone to think my land is just a compliment to his boots. Knock me out, and I'll call my hellhounds. I'll have someone to call, all right. Someone with teeth. All right. So as you notice, I have no paper up here with me. That's because I hopefully have everything memorized. And if not, then this is going to get real interesting. But the first poem of my own that I'm going to do, I got to give a shout out to a couple of people. It was originally just titled on having to explain why Puerto Rico uses American dollars. So I got to give a shout out to my homie Travis for giving me the alternate title to this one, $4 Mofongo. When I complained on Facebook about having to come up with a better title for it, he gave me like 5 different titles that were ridiculous, but that one was dope. I also have to give a shout out to Kim Grabowski, who told me that on having to explain why Puerto Rico uses American dollars is actually not a bad title. Thanks, Kim. This is $4 Mofongo, or on having to explain why Puerto Rico uses American dollars. 1. Portrait of Mofongo. Golden plátano bowl drenched in broth like a heart in blood. Portrait of girl eager to pay for the dish, clutching paper as green as the plátanos that made it. 2. In Spanish class, Patrick is confused. Wants to know why dead American presidents haunt Puerto Rican currency. The instructor, Catalonian by birth, her accent more paella than mofongo, either does not know or does not care. Once told me to use real Spanish, that Español real, when I wrote Boricua to denote my origins. 3. El Estado Libre Asociado translates into the world's oldest colony. Don't trust Google Translate or your Spanish-English dictionaries when you get the free associated state. Puerto Rico is U.S. territory, as in, this land is your land, this land is your land. When Scott says Commonwealth, I'm wrong not to correct him with colony. 4. I can take being the only black kid in class. Its reluctance to speak during lessons on slavery. Its teachers asking me if I am uncomfortable with Twain's use of nigger and Huck Finn. Its jokes about the neighborhood I grew up in being gang territory. But being Puerto Rican is this squeeze of my heart, this eruption of brothy blood when being told I am third world, when being taught I am not good enough for first world American dollars, when learning mofongo, for all its glitter, is not gold. For the first time, I am Puerto Rican. Okay, so the second poem I'm going to do is from a series of poems that I wrote from the perspective of Roberto Clemente. Cameron, if you had just had a 21 on that shirt instead of a 22, we would have been best friends today. Like, I mean, as if we aren't already best friends, but but poets unite. But yeah, this is a poem that actually a lot of you in here workshopped last semester and helped me make better. Hopefully you think it's better too. But it deals with how race functions differently in Latin America than it does here in the States, and how Clemente had to sort of learn that. So, Clemente's letter home, Dunbar Heights, 1955. Mommy, Papi, if black is dirt, then black is nutrient. Black pushes beauty out between its hands, every black knuckle spotted with bright shades. If black is oil, then black is slick smooth. Slide in the field, shoestring catch tracking ball slick slide from glove to hand and down the line. If black is shadow, then black comes from Chango blackbird above approaching sun. Freedom of flight. If black is night, then black is lit by stars, light crashes against its chest, its legs, its back, harder than any crack of the bat. If black is cold, then black kindles, warms, combusts, can't be contained, explosion popping louder than Lolita's bullets, black bullets, screeching louder than shouts and loud as black bullets, claiming freedom in White House, from White House. Pero mami, papi, todos me dicen que yo también soy negro. Que negro es moreno. Negro es prieto, que negro es bien bon, que negro es Nietzsche, is nigger. Black is not molasses sweeter than cane stretching for miles under Carolina's sun. Cane, you roam, Poppy. Cane, you taught black to roam. Cane that taught black to swing. Black is not your shoulders, mommy. Shoulders that carried meat for miles. Gave sustenance. Negro es abuelo que no aparecen en ninguna foto. Negro chamaquita deseando hermano blanco. Negro vergüenza. Is shame. Mommy. Papi. I need to know if black is me, is us. Which are we? Moment. So a couple things about that poem that I just did not explain and that I always fail to explain. One, it's dedicated to Ana Iri Clemente, Roberto's older sister. She died when he was a kid, and when his parents were pregnant with him, she actually said that she was praying to God for a white baby brother to be born. The other thing is that the ending send-off moment was one of Clemente's childhood nicknames. Yeah, I always forget to explain those things. All right. So my last two poems are poems from a series that I just started a couple months ago called The Bomba Blues Poems. Deals with being a mixed race kid. The first one is The Bomba Man Talked Shit to Malcolm. You rice and bean without the onion. You chuleta with no adobo, you bomba with no kuapo, puñeta, you just an Anglo with brown skin and kinky roots. Don't think your roots mean you old shit. With your, I don't dance salsa. Your, we don't have money for Puerto Rico. Your, my mom doesn't speak Spanish. Your, yo solo hablo bits and pieces ass. You can fly Puerto Rican flags, call the island Borinquen, cook all the bacalao you want, but in the end, you as Puerto Rican as West Side Story. As Puerto Rican as Vanna White. No bomba. No plena. Just paint. Fading from old shacks in La Verga. The planes jetting from San Juan every hour. You like the rum they take from us. Smooth down the hatch, nice buzz, then forgot. Why you trying so hard to claim a dispossessed homeland anyway? All right. Last poem I'm gonna do is The Bomba Man's Ars Poetica. Bomba is not about a beating. Neither of African flesh nor of the drums. The trukutu billed as main attraction. Drum is only distraction. Something to nod your head to. Bomba. Bomba is about the feet shifting as challenge. Pie que siguen moviendo, que empiran sonero. Words molded not from incessant beating, because bomba isn't about a beating of leather and flesh. Bomba is about the energy of a Caribbean sun being trapped in 2 feet screaming, "Huepa!" Screaming, "Suena!" 2 feet in motion, if not perpetually, then at least longer than the beating. It's not that we don't know how to mourn. This movement is our libation. Mijo, don't make this about violence. Make it about motion, about transfer, about living. Thank you.
Next up, we have Courtney Luk, who has picked a really, really good walk-up song. So she's included a couple facts about her that are told by other people. There's no way she's old enough to be a student here, said in every school she's ever attended. I relate to this too much. While everyone is having a rave outside her dorm room, she just sits in colors by herself. She yawns like Donald Duck. Never cross the street with her. Do you remember that one? And she looks like the girl from The Ring. So, for Courtney, here we are.
So, those were all true. Those were all said to me many times. Especially the one about The Ring. I've gotten that since it came out. I think it makes more sense when I have my longer hair, so just wait 2 years, I'll be crawling under your TV. I mean, you're really scary. Also, I think we can see over the podium, so hopefully you can see me. Alright, so I'm going to read a piece that I workshopped recently. So it's a work in progress, and by work in progress, I mean that I finished this part this afternoon. So we'll see how it goes. We'll just wing it. Alright, so it doesn't have a title yet, so that's how under construction it is. Each valley of his ribs feels like I'm dipping my fingers in quicksand, and I want to sink them deeper as perspiration bubbles from beneath skin. Puffed lips hover over his, threatening to steal his breath, as if the soul exists and I'm taking his into me. As I train fingertips for my tongue along his ridges, he presses down on my waist. Lucky for him, I speak body language. Unlucky for him, I don't acknowledge his requests, fixated on my own doings. I just need to, he says, but I cut him off, pressing my lips hard against his. He lifts my body up, unzipping his jeans and sliding them past his ankles faster than I've seen before. He sighs in relief, heavy, like when the person next to you is drafted for the most unpleasant of tasks. Forfeiting my territory, I grip the waistband of his boxer briefs between my teeth and pull. Slowly. He wants to rush it, motioning with his hands, but I don't let him. I don't let him ruin the moment. I wait for it, and it comes. As the day changes into the next, I turn onto my driveway that leads to a split-level home. It's dark inside, but I don't turn on a light. I know this house well enough to navigate my way from the foyer to the kitchen for a quick handful of grapes, and up the stairs to the bathroom. I close the door with an acquired silence, flick on a dimmed light, and allow my eyes to adjust. Late-night showers are to die for. Better than any bedroom trick I've read in Cosmo or improvised with another body behind mine. As I close my eyes, I turn toward the stream, letting water flow down my breasts, rippling across my own ridges to my thighs. My muscles loosen in its comfort. The water rids me of its traces, and I'm clean again, untouched and untainted. I ready myself to go to sleep, and by now it's 1 a.m. I like to read before turning in, but I know I shouldn't do that this time, not tonight at least. The bedroom is as familiar to me as the rest of the house, and I don't turn on my bedside lamp. Instead, I climb onto the right side of the bed and pull a comforter over my body. Satin cloth rubbing against me, leaving a chill that contrasts freshly washed skin. I turn to my left. The last thing I see through the darkness of the room is my husband. Some people need coffee in the morning. An extra large mocha latte with 2 shots of espresso, hold the whipped cream. Now that would be too many calories. They need it to waken their minds and prepare them for the world, but they aren't tea drinkers. Not enough caffeine, yet they're still not fully awake. I'm not one of these people. I despise the bitter taste that lingers on your tongue and the coffee breath. Oh, I hate coffee breath. I walk over to the corkboard that's mounted on the wall beside the fridge. It's tucked into the corner of the room like a pile of dirty laundry after the hamper is full. There's a small whiteboard I had bought from Staples because it had been on sale this summer before I started college. I never used it once during those 4 years. I wasn't as organized as I had intended to be, but half a decade later, it finally came in handy. A blue marker is clipped atop the board, and I take it down and I cap it. I think for a good 10 seconds before writing, Andy something, meant leaving the office, no dinner, at his place last night, nothing weird. I hear Kurt drag his feet across the kitchen floor toward the Keurig. His eyes are half closed and flannel pants twisted at the waist. "You're up early," he says. I turn on the machine and He turns on the machine and drops in a K-cup, then sets down a mug. The Keurig makes a clogged drain bubbling over sound and spews liquid into the cup. As he waits for it to fill, he takes out the waffles waiting for him in the toaster oven and puts them on a light blue melamine plate with printed daisies. Part of a housewarming gift sent from his mother, who began to hate everything about me once Kurt and I established our arrangement. The son decided to see me. Forgot to close those blinds? I asked. I moved to the sink to clear some dishes. He comes over and kisses my cheek. Coffee breath. Sorry, honey, I crashed up in the game. It was a sad night. I don't know why it's so hard to just hit the damn ball. I smile and kiss him, bearing through the bitterness. Maybe the sun was in their eyes. Kurt wraps his arm around me and laughs as he tucks in the tip of his nose into the crook of my neck. It was a night game, sweetheart. He puts his lips on my neck, his stubble tickling me, and I laugh as I always do. I can't get used to that prickly feeling, though it's been there since we met and made for an uncomfortable yet strangely satisfying first kiss when we hiked up the cliffs that overlooked Inglewood. Kurt retreats and tends to his waffles. I'm gonna go for my run, I say, as I head upstairs to change. He nods. Waffle in hand, he steps over to the cork board, nods again, takes the eraser that's hanging from a thread thumbtack, and makes the event from the night before disappear. 2 days pass and Kurt is stroking my hair as he flips through Sports Illustrated, hovering over Photoshop images, eyebrows curling to either confirm the airbrush quality or to ingrain them into his brain for later use. I'm lying on Kurt's bare chest, reading a novel about accidental murder and hookers. It's not all that good, but a friend recommended it to me, and I want something to talk about during our next brunch, although it'll mostly sound a lot like, did you love it? Tell me you loved it. Not really. It's kind of illogical. I mean, the hooker jumps out the window to get away from the creepy dude, but I'm pretty sure there had to have been a better way out, like a front door or something. Liz. No, you don't understand. The window would have been faster. Faster, maybe. Damaging to one's bones? Duh. My phone buzzes and shakes on the nightstand. I reach for it. It's a 201 area code, but a number I don't recognize. I open a text message. Hey baby, thinking about you, ... I hate when people end sentences with 2 dots. Not a period, not an ellipsis. I realize it's probably Andy something and put the phone back on the table. He misses you, huh? Asked Kurt, still distracted by the model on page 57. I suppose. That sucks. For him, I mean. I let the conversation fall, but he picks it back up. It's been a while for us, he says, as he finally puts the magazine down. Not too long, I reply, without tearing my eyes from the mash of words. He frowns for a second. But that means I'm not your last one. It's never bothered you before. It hasn't, and it doesn't. I'm just saying. He places his palms on the small of my back, squeezes gently, kisses my shoulder. Just saying. I stick an index card into the book and close it, placing it on the nightstand beside my phone that's blinking with another message waiting. Then I face Kurt and touch my lips to his chest where my head rested a moment prior. Good. Rule number 4. Don't forget. Kurt is apt to forget, or maybe disregard the 4th rule. My guess is because he thinks I'm apt to pretend the first doesn't exist. But we both know that we both know these rules better than we know each other. We made them up together before our wedding day. As a newly engaged couple, we were congratulated by family and friends in the most typical of fashion with gifts and hugs and 2 cheek kisses. And of course, can you imagine only being with Kurt for the rest of your life? Do you really want to only sleep with Liz from now on? The word only carried itself like a warning. You better not get married or face the consequences. My stomach sank at this familiar threat. Kurt and I had talked about this several times before even being engaged, before we were told of only. It was the obvious hurdle. Neither of us were the most committed individuals, usually reaching for something seemingly better after getting what we had initially wanted. In fact, this is what drew us together in the first place, the search for someone better than the person we were with. Our engagement party ended before midnight, but some guests mingled until 2. Kurt and I didn't step into our apartment until 4, and we didn't fall asleep right away or feel what it was like to start forever with only each other. We lay on our sides and the blanket spread underneath us. I propped up my head with the heel of my hand and stared at the man across the bed. He seemed like a memory, I think I can recall perfectly, but have probably changed over time to make it more dramatic. Kurt adjusted his posture, making the mattress springs creak. "Are you happy?" he asked. I nodded out of reflex. "Nervous," I said. "Me too." There was a heavy pause until he said, "You know, Dominic and Trinity made this deal when they first got married. It alleviated their anxieties. It was suggested to them by the counselor." I nodded again. Dominic was Kurt's college roommate, and they stayed in touch since graduation, seeing each other for major holidays and celebrations. I remember. "Are you suggesting it'll work for us?" "Maybe in the beginning, so we don't feel anchored. We can try it for the first year and see where we are then. I want us to be there for each other, not to be tied down. I don't want us to feel trapped. It's marriage, not prison." I smiled. Kurt always had our best interests in mind. I said, "We'll only use it as a safety. Maybe not at all, but it can be there just in case." He reached for my hand and caressed the back of it with his thumb. "Of course. Anything to ease our minds." "You sure it worked for them?" Dominic told me himself. Leaning over the bed, I pulled out a pad of paper and a black ink pen from the drawer. Rule number 1. With other people, it can only be physical. No dates, no relationships, no emotional investment. And he nodded, his hand still in mine. I feel naked, lost. I left my phone at home this morning, so my entire day consisted of me stuffing my hands into my pockets in hopes of finding a life-supporting device I already knew wasn't there. I'm probably sitting on the kitchen counter and explaining to every pissed-off coworker that no, I wasn't ignoring her. As soon as I got into the house, I expect to see my phone blinking, but it's not there. I scoured the surrounding area, the floor, the table, even the fridge. With a huff, I shake out the contents of my handbag, tubes of lipstick, month-old receipts, and half-eaten, partially melted candy bars topple onto the countertop. No phone. Kurt, I call into the air. He usually gets home before me, and I had seen his car in the drive as I pulled in. "Kurt, have you seen my phone?" No answer. I trudge up the stairs to the bedroom, along the way spotting the bathroom door closed. I roll my eyes. The bed isn't made, and one of the pillows is tipped over the corner of the mattress. Peeking from underneath the pillow, resting on the nightstand, and of course blinking as expected, is my cell. I scroll through 8 missed calls, 6 of them which are from the same chick who thought I didn't care about the copy machine jam, 4 missed text messages also about the copier. Among the bundle was a text from Andy something, though it wasn't marked unread. "I'm sorry if I seemed too upfront earlier. I had a nice time with you that night. I hope we can get together again after work." Sent at 12:54 p.m. I remember seeing him just before the parking lot as I left the office. He waved, cigarette between his fingers. I smiled and lifted my hand quickly. He seemed to step toward me, but I continued to my car, careful to not pretend like I wanted to talk to him. He knows of the arrangement as well. The bathroom door opened and steam escaped with Kurt in tow. "Hey honey, how's work?" he asked. I bit my lip, my back still facing the doorway to the bedroom. He walked up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. "Tough day?" I clutched the phone in my hand, tighter now. "Liz?" I left my phone at home. "I'm sorry, if I knew I would have come back and driven it over to you." He kissed the top of my head. "But you didn't." Thank you.
Okay, so we had 4 readers and none of them were nonfiction. I was like, well, who do I introduce? Obviously, Kelly Andrews, because, you know, cats. Yeah, let me tell you about her. She's got some bio info here, and it's all good. I want to read it all. The first time when I read over this real quickly, instead of the word tornadoes, I saw tomatoes. So you can just imagine how I'll just read it as tomatoes. Kelly has had a fear of tomatoes for approximately the last 22 plus years of her life. And I was like, oh, that's strange. This fear was amplified with the release of the '96 movie Twister and the made-for-TV movie Night of the Twisters, starring Devon Sawa, also released in '96. What do those have to do with tomatoes? To this day, without fail, she unconsciously puts on her shoes during thunderstorms in preparation for taking shelter in the basement. Wait, I don't think that said tomatoes. Okay. Kelly has an irrational love of pulling the shell off of a hard-boiled egg, but only if the shell stays mostly intact. If she has to pick tiny pieces of shell off the egg, then the whole experience is ruined. Oh, and here she mixes genres, the intro with the classified ad. Kelly is potentially looking for a new roommate to move into her current 2-bedroom apartment starting in July, though move-in date is flexible. The place has 2 balconies and fireplaces and free laundry in the basement. If you know of someone looking who likes cats, you should get in touch with her after the reading. Let's bring her up here, Kelly Andrews.
Thanks for that. Hey, did you get your new Catster in the mail today? They changed Cat Fancy's name to Catster now.
Yes, I heard about that.
It's not.
I got her subscription for her.
Yeah. Okay. So, as per usual, I'm gonna read some dead dad stuff because everything's always coming up dead dads in my world. So I'm gonna read one really long poem and then a couple of short poems after that. Yeah. Okay. So this is called The Fear Nows. I find my father in another quick fill miles away from home, cellophane crinkling as I finger the package while standing in line. He resembles the king of clubs, and I crease the edge so I won't be surprised. My oily hands make a bridge as the faces shuffle into one another, a familiar blur of black and red. In the rearview mirror, I check my chin for long, stray hairs, watch as people kick the snow from their tires. I rub the glossy cards against my cheek, flick them out the window one by one. His lung is deflating like a heart-shaped balloon. Be mine, it says. 6 pine trees line the edge of our yard, and it's a 1-story White House next to Route 18. Maybe I could pump him full of air, let him tap against the water-stained ceiling. But he's sagging into his sad brown chair as I sweat into the receiver. A gurney rushes in, and the oxygen mask creases into his skin. I try to remember the names of medications, of all the hospitals I've ever visited, but they all smell the same to me. The shoulder bag clicks and hisses as he pulls up a stool, orders a Black Label beer. Underneath his flannel shirt, the stitches run from sternum to stomach. In Pittsburgh, he spent days having a hole in his throat suctioned out, a third of his lungs removed. My father buys a small stack of rip-off tickets and lets me pull the tabs. We want 3 cherries with an arrow through the middle. I make a mental list of all the books I'll buy, see myself dressed in washed-out bell-bottoms, crop top, and big square shades. Best of all, I'll hire a driver to take the back roads so I can admire the rings of the haystacks in every field. The kitchen chairs scrape against vinyl tile, and a nurse says swab, says tongue. She isn't wearing a crisp white uniform or a tightly pinned bun. I eat handfuls of Skittles as my mother wipes the table, stacks papers into piles. He is propped up with pillows on a bed near the window, his face an ashy, glassless version of itself. I sit on the edge of the bed, and I can tell by his expression he knows who I am. I can't stop thinking about euthanasia as my hand strokes his bruised hand. How maybe we're all killing my father gently with each rub of the gums. I don't know anyone in Pittsburgh, but I have a dishwasher I never use and a balcony that overlooks hilly streets and rooftops. I call my father, and he says, "It'll be all right." And I say, "Okay." It wasn't anyone's birthday, and I didn't bake a lemon cake. Earlier, we watched How the West Was Won on the little TV in the kitchen. We're both just so worried all the time, my father looking out the sliding glass door as I prop my feet against the railing. When he hugged me goodbye, I could feel the bones in his chest line up perfectly with the bones in my chest. I stand beside the bed and look out at the nothingness that is gravel and snow. The room smells like a damp towel rolled into a ball. When my father breathed, the space between each breath rose into a memory. At a neighbor's window, watching him in the lamplight with clenched fists. The coworker's house filled with fleas and lice. The cigarette inches below the oxygen hose, gonna huff and puff and blow this house up. The cuts on his hands and the dog licking them clean. The crack of a beer tab and locking the bedroom door. Until finally the blood recedes from his arms to his heart, the skin a pale yellow where it used to be dark. Okay, now I'm going to read stuff that's nothing like that, and not at all that depressing. Okay, so I'm going to read 3 more poems. This next one is called Overture of Longing because my manuscript's due Monday and everything has to have a title, so that'll probably change, but for the moment, that's what it's called. So, Overture of Longing. Fact. I am long repelled in my off-season ugliness. My too many fucks to name vulgarity stains the flannel sheets in imperfect circles, as if my child hand drew a lopsided smiley face in the center. I keep tracing outside the line of where you've been. Fact. I want to be what you want me to be without changing. A woman slathered in honey, lying in a forest of unbearable trees, like an overture of longing to have soiled soaked skin be licked up whole. Fact. I am susceptible to any vulnerability. Backbone swelling in the insistent sun, as slow as a leak in a Goodyear tire. It's easy to order another shot of Jameson and think about you jerking off, or how the flakes of sugar stayed stuck to the corner of your mouth. Fact. I am a negative of a photograph, thin-coated and overexposed. You can barely make out this remembering, a face like the trail of a plane in flight. Fact. I am impressionable to a point, willing to hoe a garden of baby dolls, their empty sockets and dust-clean dresses collecting in your backyard. I'm drinking a glass of milk as the ice melts, and I almost forget that you don't feel a thing for me. Okay, so this next one is one of those ones where the title bleeds into the first line of the poem. So it's called, I Can't Stop Listening to That Big Sean Song. I can't stop listening to that Big Sean song and singing I got a million trillion things I'd rather fucking do, while driving as recklessly as my 2-door Yaris can manage. I look at Craigslist personal ads in other cities, Portland, Denver, Asheville, Ann Arbor, but there are creeps everywhere, and besides, cost of living is what really matters. Sometimes I think about how thin your hair will be in 20 years, whether or not you will have a pork belly, how I'd still sleep with you despite everything. I dreamt I hooked up with 2 of your friends, not at the same time, though both named Mike, and in one of the dreams, I was smoking cigarettes again, and I could be that woman easily. I wrote this when I was like not smoking cigarettes for 2 weeks, so. That's why poems are not nonfiction. I mean, like, or not nonfiction. Is that right? Am I saying it right?
They're not nonfiction.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so this last poem I'm going to read is called Hot Dog Wedding. And it's kind of, like once I started writing it, I was kind of like, I wonder how many times I could put hot dog in a poem. and I don't remember what the exact count is, but I want to say at least 6 times it shows up. So yeah. Hot Dog Wedding. At the wedding, I eat hot dogs without a bun, eat so many I'm beyond full, and not even thinking about the absurdity of hot dogs at a wedding. Not even after your mother tells me you 2 are moving to New Amsterdam. You found a place there that allows little dogs, perfect for your min pin, and I almost choke on the grilled skin. But it's no surprise, really, you moving so fast with someone new. What's strange is I can't stop with the hot dogs. I mean, it's been years since I've had one, but more importantly, I realize I would never sit calmly while you read aloud vows. Surely I'd make a scene and one more dramatic than grease dribbling down my chin. When I text a friend about the dream later, I spell it hot dogs. An accurate representation and just one example of many things I mispronounce. Library, birth date, color for color, but refusing to say Warsh like my mother. And I know that New Amsterdam isn't really a place but a bar in Lawrenceville, and you aren't even dating anyone, but I woke up at 4 a.m. pissed, not because I dreamt you were getting married, but because you probably would have hot dogs at your future wedding.